Hi everybody and welcome into another edition of the SunDevilSource Postgame Show. I'm Ethan Tuttle, joined alongside Chris Cartman. We're here at Desert Financial Arena following Arizona State's 71-69 victory over the UMass-Lowell Riverhawks. The Sun Devils improved to 2-1 following a 2-minute point at the end of the game where they wiped an 11-point deficit down the drain. Frankie Collins a big part of that as they were able to get the victory. Chris, just want to start off, UMass-Lowell, a pretty solid team. What does a victory like this mean for the team?
Look, they had no Q3 losses at home last year, I believe. Colorado was borderline. UMass-Lowell 121 in Ken Palm. That's not the net, we'll see. But probably that would have been a Q3 loss at home. You have to avoid those things at home. That would have been a really bad thing. Of course, this team doesn't look like they are an NCAA tournament caliber team right now. But if you remember last year, they lost to Texas Southern on the road, which was a Q4 loss. Then they went to their holiday tournament. They beat VCU the very next game, and then they boat raced Michigan somehow. Bobby Hurley compared the start of this season to last year's team, but he said that they need that sort of a switch to happen here in coming games. They're going to have their holiday tournament going to Las Vegas, and they really need to get something going because tonight, until they went on that frenetic full court press where they generated 5 turnovers in like a minute and a half late, and UMass-Lowell really fell apart there. It looked like this was going to be a loss, and that's even though it's a pretty good opponent, just beat Georgia Tech as we said. At home, that's not the type of thing that you could have happen.
Arizona State was shooting less than 30% from the field at the end of the first half. Changed things around in the second half. I believe they were 54% from the field. They had 27 points off of turnovers as well. You mentioned a little span in the game right there where they were able to really make some stuff happen. Offensively, what have you gauged from the team so far this season?
They've shot the ball poorly in the half-court offense. And you don't have Des Cambridge, and you can't run guys off stagger screens and flares and do things of that nature with this team. It seems like they're a little more limited right now. They went to Jose Perez, the West Virginia transfer, who had to sat out last year in the mid-post, and he had some success operating in some ISO situations. He's a pretty good passer. They may have to lean on that a little bit more. I think that they had hoped that they'd be able to shoot the ball better from the perimeter at their forward positions between Kamari Lands, Alonzo Gaffney, Zane Meeks, and others to open up things for Jemiah Neal and Frankie Collins to work in the half court. It hasn't really developed that way. We're going to have to see. I think when they press, it forces them to be more intense and aggressive. And this has always been a thing about Bobby Hurley's teams, is that when they're playing with their hair kind of on fire, it leads to better overall results. I feel like their press has been one of the best things about Hurley's teams for years now. And without that tonight, they definitely would have lost.
Yeah, a lot of pressure there that they were generating, and were able to force some turnovers. Switching it over to rotation for the Sun Devils, Kamari Lands didn't get the start tonight. He was not in the 5. Did come in and have significant minutes in the second half, pretty much played the entire second half. So your thoughts on the rotation right now for the Sun Devils at this point in the season?
So we kind of knew going in that there were 6 guys for 5 spots. Sean Phillips is a starter, but he only played 7 minutes in the second half as a center. We saw UMass-Lowell win points in the paint despite being significantly outsized by ASU. They got too many good looks in and around the rim, and I don't think that Phillips was contesting or blocking enough of those shots for a 7'5" wingspan guy that they've raved about his athleticism. And so Kamari Lands ended up playing the entire second half. That's more of a press, open floor type of an approach to what they're doing. I think it worked out. I think more problematic for this team right now, Ethan, is their 8th player in the rotation played like 4 or 5 minutes. So they only really went 7 deep. Zane Meeks was out there early on in the game as somebody that's hit some threes in their last win. But then in this game, we didn't see him, I don't think, at all in the second half. So he's cut his rotation down quite significantly. Malachi Davis, another guy who it seemed like they were trying to get him involved quite a bit in the first couple games. This game, he came in, looked a little bit reckless in one stint, and then he didn't get back out there at all in the second half. So this is actually a legitimate problem, I would say, because I thought that this team would probably be more like 8 or 9 deep with consistency, and instead Bobby Hurley's already kind of squeezing it down to 7 in a game like this against UMass-Lowell at home. That's a little bit of a problem.
What do the Sun Devils still need to do to continue to develop here in the non-con schedule? They have a slew of tough games still on the way. So what's going to be the key for them to continue developing and moving in a positive direction ahead of Pac-12 play?
Well, first let's start with just playing harder, more consistently. Hurley talked about them being almost glass-eyed and not fully dialed in the first half. That is a big problem. You can't come out at home and have that type of a performance lead to a loss. They found out the hard way in some games last year when they should have beaten a team like Texas Southern, and they got blown out on the road at San Francisco, not showing up in the first half. They've had players, including Jose Perez, talk about what this would have meant in their resume for March had they lost the game. So there's a cognitive awareness of it, and yet it almost seemed like they're thinking, okay, this isn't a top 100 team. We don't need to play that hard, but that's how you end up needing to scramble super late to come back and that type of a thing. You can't have that happen. And look, their non-conference is pretty damn good. They got TCU and BYU. Those are top 25 Ken Pom teams. They have other top 100 Ken Pom teams that they have coming up on deck. There's like almost no ultra gimme games that they have out there, like maybe going to San Diego, but that's even on the road, but that's only outside of the top 200 Ken Pom. So maybe they don't have the elite blue blood teams on their non-conference roster, but they got several more games that are going to be as difficult as this one, and they can't afford to lose more than 1 or 2 of them if they're going to try to boost their stock such that they can ride it through the Pac-12 play and have a chance to be included in March Madness.
Chris, thank you. That'll do it for this edition of the SunDevilSource Postgame Show. Sun Devils get the win 71-69 over the UMass-Lowell Riverhawks. For Chris Cartman and myself, we're signing off saying we'll see you next time.